You are tuned in to another edition of Americana Music Profiles, brought to you by Americana Rhythm Music Magazine and AmericanaMusicMagazine.com. I'm your host, Greg Tutwiler. Let's jump right in to the next exciting interview. Brothers Michael, Charlie, and Mark make up the musical trio called the Riddle Brothers. Although they've played music together most of their lives, it wasn't until their sister's birthday that inspired them to actually get together professionally and create a CD collection of some of their music. That CD, Cotton Valley Store, is a tribute to where they're from, a small town in northwest Louisiana. I was fortunate enough to get all three of them together on the phone and talk about their musical journey and their yet-to-be-named upcoming new CD project. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast.
Hey there.
Thanks.
Hello.
I am talking to Michael, Charlie, and Mark Riddle with Riddle Brothers. And you guys are, if I've got this right, in Minnesota? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. A lifelong residents of Minnesota, is that where you guys grew up?
No, actually, this is Mike. Actually, I grew up started my life in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge area. Charlie was born in Baton Rouge, and then the family gradually moved up the Mississippi River.
Okay.
In the mid '60s, moved to Moline, Illinois, where it's really where I grew up.
Okay.
And Mark was born in Moline.
Okay.
So there's a span of 10 years between Mark and I, with Charlie right dead in the middle at 5 years.
Yeah. Okay.
But we all kind of, music was a big part of our family's culture, and we all were in at one time in our early lives were in boys' choirs.
Oh, all right.
So we all, had the experience very early on of singing in boys' choirs. Charlie and I were in boys' choirs in Moline, the Moline Boys' Choir. And Mark was in the Minnesota Boys' Choir here in the Twin Cities.
When did all of that translate into a trio of sorts of you guys playing together as a group?
Well, I think, when early on, Mike got his first guitar, I think at the age of 13. And we started, as soon as Mike started learning some songs, we kind of sat around and sang with him, and, just as a family gathering type of activity. And then we all have individually had our own musical experiences in terms of being in bands or groups or ensembles.
Okay.
And really, it didn't come together until about 8 years ago when our sister turned 50, and we said, "Hey, let's put a band together for her 50th birthday party."
Okay.
And I mean, we had toyed with the idea over the years, and that's when it all came together.
Do you all live in proximity to each other now? Is it fairly easy to get together to do this?
Well, right now we probably live about 40 minutes in between each of us. So
okay.
I live in the northern suburbs of Minneapolis. Mark lives in the southern suburbs, and Charlie lives just across the river in Hudson, Wisconsin.
Okay. Was music a full-time thing for all of you, any of you, or did you all have professional endeavors of some other kind?
Well, this is Michael. I started out, actually as a professional musician when I moved to Minnesota. I was playing in clubs and doing a little bit of studio work here in the Twin Cities back in the 70s when I first moved up here. And then, once I had a mortgage and, 2 kids, I took a full-time job, but I always played music.
Okay.
Played steady. Charlie, you have a pretty interesting experience, too.
Yeah, for myself, right after, pretty much during high school and right after high school, I was kind of playing as a professional musician around the Twin Cities area in a variety of different bands, anything ranging from blues to bluegrass to salsa to jazz to a little bit of everything.
And you mentioned earlier that you grew up with music as part of your childhood. Is that because of parents or extended relatives? How did that all play into all of you kind of pursuing some sort of music outside of, once you left the home.
Well, this
So I
is
think
Charlie.
it was.
This is
Go
Charlie's
ahead, Charlie.
grandparents. Our grandparents were probably, and our parents, but our parents were very supportive of us being in music from an early age. And our grandparents on our dad's side, both were, amateur musicians on the side. They lived in a small little country town in northwest Louisiana near Shreveport.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's actually what our first CD, Cotton Valley Story, is named after the town of Cotton Valley where they
cool.
were from.
Okay.
And which is also the home of the Cox family out of Cotton Valley.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And they used to have jam sessions at their house, and our grandmother, which we've got one of the songs dedicated to her on the CD. She actually have a little snippet of her playing, but she was one of those play-by-ear honky-tonk players.
Okay.
And just knew all the old ragtime, standards of the time.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we would sit around and she'd play piano and we'd all sing, and so that's kind of how that went.
Did the feel of the music that I heard that I'm presuming is part of the Cotton Valley Store is very Americana-ish, kind of maybe leans on the folk side. Is that intentional? Is that what you guys? You mentioned all kinds of different things there with the grandparents. What led you to pursue the flavor that you guys settled on with that record?
Well, this is Michael. I think really, all of us have a pretty eclectic taste when it comes to music.
Mm-hmm.
We were trained in, as young kids in choirs, we were trained in, choral and classical music.
Right.
And then we, of course, when I saw the Beatles on television, that's what, prompted me to say, hey, this is what I want to do.
Right. Okay.
And I think Charlie was the same way. We both, started out in the rock area, but then, gradually we moved more and more into, as, going to school and studying music in more depth, got into jazz, and then, different veins of that. So, our style, like you said, it is folk because we kind of focused on the concept of being acoustic.
Okay.
That's really was kind of the root of where we started. If you talk about folk music, as I once heard, folk music is music played by folk.
Right.
So I think the thing for me is that it tells a story.
Right.
And so I think all of the songs that we have are more, they're stories. They tell stories. And that really is, I think, a real important part of our music, the folk music history. And also, Nashville's kind of copied that too. Their songs are very much, a story, painting pictures. Well, I think that's really where we have gone. But, our music also is not, it's typically not just simple, 1-4-5 chord structure, It's not 4 chords and the truth all the time.
Sure,
We like to get a little experimental when it comes to our harmony.
Yeah. And I'm guessing you guys are writing most or all of the music that you perform?
Most of I'd say we probably do, it's probably, what would you guys say, 30-70, about 30% covers and 70% original?
At this point, yeah. This is Mark.
The music that the originals, are they songs that you guys set down intentionally to put together to do this? Have collected them over the years? Tell me a little bit about your songwriting.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I think Charlie and I both are more lone individuals when it comes to, coming up with a concept. But then we'll bring the song in, to the group, and we'll work on it then. Maybe, change a key, add a bridge, an intro, do something a little bit different to it. Figure out the harmonies, And Mark is the same way. Mark is just beginning to bringing in some really cool stuff. So it's been really fun, taking the concept, some of his concepts, and then developing into, full songs.
Yeah. And you mentioned that the story aspect of it. I know this is kind of a broad question, but where do you find most of that inspiration for the stories are coming from?
Well, this is Charlie. On the CD, that was actually kind of based upon the town of Cotton Valley. To us, growing up, was we would visit there. Our grandparents owned the general store in town, and it was a very small little country town, little dusty country town, but it was one of those places where the store was the center of the universe, and everybody hung out at that store, and so we got to know all kinds of different characters in town, of different sorts, and the different influences of what the store was like. I mean, for us, it was, like I said, it was like Disney. It was like Disneyland growing up when we were kids. I mean, it was just one of these towns where everybody hung out and talked and traded goods and things like that. And
when you mentioned that you guys kind of got together in this configuration about 8 years ago for a sister's birthday party, was the intention at that point kind of a one-off? Did you guys have any idea that 8 years later you've got an album and working on a second? Was there a plan, a method to it?
Well, this is Mike. I think that I think we were surprised. Our sister was back when she was younger. She worked at a record store. Actually, she and Charlie worked at the record store, and she was very influenced by country rock at that time. The Jerry Jeffs and Pure Prairie Leagues and bands like that. And so that's really where she had an interest. So when we put this thing together, we thought, well, let's just get some songs that Jan would be interested in, and let's just see if we could, perform them together and see how it goes. And I think we were all quite surprised at the blend that we got when we actually sat down and really, were able to, truly sing a part together,
Right.
And I think that really kind of spurred us on to, hey, maybe there's something here. Maybe we should do more with this.
And this is Mark. I think we've gotten remarks since then that people really love that sibling harmony.
Sure, yeah.
And people have remarked that there's something about that just the timbre in our voices really, we can try to really make it ring.
Is that the idea of the sibling harmony and the fact that you guys have grown up with each other and at some form singing together for a long time, does that play into when you guys are writing songs and putting the lyrics together for that?
Well, I don't know if that's so much the sibling harmony thing, but I mean, what it does for us, I guess I would say, is that in each of the songs, when we work out harmony parts, a lot of them tend to come pretty naturally to us.
Yeah.
In a sense, I mean, we do have to sit and theoretically work them out, make sure we're all singing and correct notes here and there. But overall, it kind of just comes naturally, and that is kind of just a little added to the top of what we write.
Yeah.
So we take a song, and then we know we can feature the harmony vocals on either the entire song or on parts of the song.
Okay. And the album that's currently out, Cotton Valley Store, we talked a little bit about that already. At what point did you guys feel like, hey, you know what, let's go ahead and put some tracks down and get into the studio?
Well, I think, this is Mike, I think we actually looked at it as, the main thing we looked at is a legacy thing. It was really for us and for our families and for our kids, because a lot of the songs are stories about our family and about, our relatives. And so we really thought about, and I think, you're right from the place that and so, we wanted to tell these stories, as an oral history, if you will, on places and things. And so that's really what our approach was with Cotton Valley Store, was we wanted to tell the story of, what it was like, I mean, it's we miss those things now. We don't have those things. Little towns don't have, small general stores like that anymore. They go to Walmart or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and that's really the idea, was that we wanted to, tell our stories and tell our kids and our grandkids the stories about our lives, But also, what's interesting to me is, and I think they'll all, both Mark and Charlie will agree, is that we all share similar values about family and about justice, and so I think when we write, a lot of us, a lot of things we write about, we do write songs that are, share a common value.
Yeah.
And so it makes it easier